to Moghrey, Jedoonee. Simon Clarke and a special guest this morning, Phil Kelly. Good morning to you, Moghrey.
It's Moghrey, you called the Mai, Jedoonee.
Good. It's your first time on Moghrey, Jedoonee, so
it is
welcome
indeed,
you to
yes.
that. And for those of you who don't know Phil, he's the current recipient of the Rai Blina Vananen Trophy from Culture Vannin. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. And that means...
It means Manannan's Choice of the Year.
Yeah. Well, let me just read this for our listeners, because it says this year's Rai Blina Vananen Manannan's Choice of the Year award from Culture Vannin recognises almost 50 years' work. Oh, sorry to give you age away, Phil. In teaching, promoting, publishing, and developing online resources for the Manx language by one of the cultural community's most unassuming leaders. Phil Kelly's enthusiasm for and dedication to the language he first discovered as a student has provided a vital contribution to the survival and development of Manx. A founder member of the, hopefully say this right, Banglain Twi. Yeah. The northern branch of Cheshire Gilder, the Manx Language Society. Phil also helped record Manx speakers in the 1970s. I could go on. There's pages and pages recognising the wonderful work you've done. And to receive that award, Phil, what's that mean?
Well, it's a very prestigious award, and very flattered I was to receive it. I don't know how it's arrived at. I think it's a choice of a variety of organisations, but they don't tell you how it's done and who put your name forward.
Well, it's absolute honour. Obviously, I was lucky enough to be on stage with a lot of the with Roy,
yes,
who was a great friend. We'll talk about Roy very shortly. Roy Kennigan, of course, Winnie Collister,
yes,
and Anne Corlett, and many others that were involved in the Michael Players for years when they received that award.
That's right. Last year, in fact, I think it was. I think this is the second year running it's been to Michael.
From your early days, then, was the Manx about then?
No, not at all. I wasn't aware of Manx until I was in my late teens, basically. I'd seen it on signs, of course,
yeah,
but I'd never heard it spoken, and wasn't aware that anybody alive actually still spoke it. I knew.
Really?
That's right. Yeah. And so I actually went to the Manx Museum, first of all, because I knew that they had recordings of native speakers, and they said, yes, we have, but you can't listen to them because we have no means of playing it. I think they were on sound mirrors or something ancient like that.
Yeah. And
so the first line of inquiry was a blank. But then I did find out about in Cheshire Gilgach and people like Doug Farragher, Leslie Quirk, speakers who'd got their Manx from native speakers, basically.
Right. But growing up in did you grow up in Kirkmichael?
No, I was born and brought up in Douglas, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But obviously nobody, you were unaware of anyone speaking it.
Speaking it, yes. I knew it. I'd seen it written on signs,
yeah,
but I hadn't heard a word of it spoken, no.
Well, did that worry you at the time?
Well, it seemed a bit of a lonely pastime to take up. But actually, once I got to meet a few people in Cheshire Gilgach, it became clearer that they were speakers, and as good as native speakers. People like Doug Farragher was a brilliant speaker.
People who have heard Doug Farragher, Phil, and my perception with my good ear of voices, you have got a very close sound to Doug Farragher's Manx, to me, or accent.
Yes, I did spend quite a bit of time with Doug when he was, especially when he was doing his dictionary. He'd spent 25 years doing his dictionary.
Wow.
That came out in 1979, and it was done in a very old-fashioned way. There was no computing at the time. He used to type out the words on cards on a typewriter and then put them in shirt boxes, and our job was to go along and put those cards into alphabetical order. And
What's a
then
shirt box?
it was an empty shirt box, you know, and he had loads of them with stacks of cards in that he typed out, and we'd go through and put them in physically put them in alphabetical order. These days now, it's a press of a button job to do that. But then that was only the first stage. He would then type it out in alphabetical order again on sheets, and then it would go to the printer to be set for printing for his dictionary. Incredible.
Wow, that's a lot of work. We've got plenty to talk about in the next 2 hours here on Moghrey Jedoonee this morning. It's Phil Kelly, the current holder of the Rai Blina Vananen Trophy here in the Isle of Man for work to do with the Manx language. And we were talking about you meeting up with Doug Farragher, not knowing any Manx that age, but wanted to get involved with it. And a lot of stories about Doug, a hard-working man. We'll talk about the dictionary again in a second. Did you get on with Doug from the start?
I got on with Doug very well. He used to arrange Manx-speaking evenings around hostelries in the Isle of Man, which was a good thing to get away from classes. It was informal speech. It was really good. I didn't really fancy going along and sit in a classroom.
And they say that now. A lot of the people who've learnt Manx used to say they just used to go along still, in the years 2000s, and just sit in a little corner of a pub somewhere and speak Manx. And so, no, it's not quite say it like that.
That's
and
right,
that's how they learnt it.
Yeah, no, it's a good way to learn. It's informal, and it's people are saying what they want to say, basically. Rather than from a textbook learning phrases that may not be any use to them anyway.
Monsieur Marceau sur le jardin.
Oh, right.
Avec
Well, you're
Claudette.
way ahead of me on the French.
But, yeah, Mr. Marceau was in the garden with Claudette,
Yes.
We learned things like that, but I suppose it was learning the masculine and feminine
right.
sides of
Yes.
the language. But I mean, why did Doug want to do the dictionary then? There was already a dictionary around, wasn't there?
Well, there has been dictionaries in the past, but very far back. I think the first one that was published was Cregeen's Dictionary in 1835, and that was Manx to English. And then Kelly's dictionary, John Kelly, wrote a dictionary. It was published in the 1860s, but actually he wrote it in probably the 1790s, and it never came out. It was never published until the Manx Society published it in 1866, I think. And it was a composite. It was a number of people who took his work and edited it into a dictionary for publication. So that took us up to
a long way.
That's up to 1866, and then I think 1938 was the next one by Neen, J.G. Neen.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah, and that was again that was English to Manx, and the same with Doug's. You see, in '79 was only English to Manx, and he wrote actually in his dictionary that there was a need to change the dictionary to Manx to English. Otherwise, people were using his dictionary to write, but you couldn't look up the words because there was no Manx to English equivalent.
Right.
So that was a problem. So in Doug, unfortunately, I think he died in 1987. I think it was about 10 years after his dictionary, and it hadn't been reversed, which there was a need for. And so I wrote to his wife Joyce and said, would she mind if we took on reversing the dictionary?
I suppose, though, you'd have the advantage of not having to put them in shirt boxes.
Wasn't it quite in shirt boxes, no, but we had to retype Doug's dictionary because there was the OCR programs at the time of, well, I don't think there was any at the time, so it had to be typed out in the reverse order. But we were able to then... you may know Mike Bolton. Mike Bolton
yes.
was quite a whiz on
man.
Computer. Yeah, yes. And between us, we were able to not use shirt boxes, but Mike's computer to actually put things into correct alphabetical order.
Right. It seems incredible, though, the work that gone in, because I suppose was there many more words to add?
Well, not at the time. We just concentrated on what there was in Doug's dictionary, and that was a straight swap, if you like. We weren't competent enough to add words. We didn't invent words. That came later, the additions, because I've been working on it now for 30 years. So when I see new words, in they go.
Fair enough, then. Well, good. Phil Kelly is our guest here on Manx Radio's Moghrey Jedoonee. Weather forecast update for you. Largely dry and brightness and sunny spells developing today. The light to moderate easterly winds will turn to the north or northeast this afternoon with a temperature of 12 Celsius. Little change overnight with the minimum temperature between a pretty chilly 2 and 4 degrees, leading to a slight grass frost in some places. The outlook remaining dry tomorrow with bright or sunny spells and a top temperature of 11 Celsius with a moderate to fresh northerly wind. And let's hear that in Manx now with Phil Kelly.
Bia chirim son a cwd smw, leis gialad as Shell and Grianach. Bia na geach a nya chinde dos an tui na nya hui san ashta shaw. As a temprela smw, 10 Celsius. As a riet, Tani e chirim merach le Shell and Gial na Grianach as temprela smw 9 Celsius. Les gia mahui mian dus bio. Morajamert be a chirim as hig flias and asta. Les gia can shiras ges na stroja. As an temprelis 10 Celsius.
26 minutes before 11 o'clock. Phil Kelly is our guest on Moghrey Jedoonee this morning. Phil, we're talking about the latest English Manx or Manx English dictionary that you've been compiling for how long now?
Well, it's nearly 30 years now.
Wow. How does it take so long?
Well, because
not blaming you for this.
No, well, a dictionary is never finished, of course. As soon as you say that's it, then there's another entry the next day. So you just keep on going.
Right. Is the dictionary out? Is it like the sort of dictionary that we have next to us in Rouse in Scrabble?
No, it's not. It's online, of course. You can download it free of charge, but it's quite large. It's, as I said, depending on the format that I put it in, it can be up to 2,500 A4 pages, double column.
2,500 pages?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's Manx English and English Manx is both ways round.
Yeah, I suppose you forget because knowing the very few words, I suppose, in the scheme of things that I know, you think, oh, well, there must be only a few hundred of them. But when you think of how many English words there are, and you've got to find one in Manx for it.
That's right, yes. Well, I don't make them up. I look for them that people are using in newspaper articles or in broadcasting, and then I add them into the dictionary.
Have you done a lot of research through old papers in the museums? And
No,
or were
I
they not
haven't.
much
There
help?
No, the academics who do that, people like George Broderick, for instance.
Right.
That's the sort of work. And a younger man now as well, Chris Lewin. He's a real academic. He'd be a professor of Manx without a doubt.
Would there be any Manx in newspapers?
Well, not so much now. I noticed.
No, I mean originally.
Oh, no, not really, no. The 1970s was a good time, actually.
Right.
There was weekly columns in papers like the Manx Star.
Yeah.
Written largely by Doug Farragher, but lots of other contributors too. So there's less now in the papers than there was in the 1970s, but far more on the internet, of course. That the papers have been left behind, basically.
Right. What about when you're going through them all the time to make sure you've spelt it correctly the second time? I mean, the spell checker must be red hot.
Well, yes. I had to build a spell checker, basically.
Really?
Yeah.
Your own dictionary, innit?
Yeah.
Wow, it's incredible. It really is. And where can people download it from, Phil?
Well, the best place to go is the Culture Vanance site. Adrian Kane runs a fantastic Manx language site called learnmanx.com, Insi Gilg. It's got everything from first day learner to academic papers. It's a fantastic resource.
Okay, well, let's have a piece of Manx music from you now. This is one of the choices that you've picked for today. Tell us about this one.
Is it Marlene Henry and Dillis, is it?
It is, yeah.
I heard them at a concert earlier this year, and I heard them actually maybe 20 years ago. Not more even than that.
They'll be delighted in
40
you.
years ago now. It's a fantastic combination of voices, I think. It's really nice.
And this song, Aren Ben Luan.
The Milkmaid song, basically.
The Milkmaid song. All right, let's listen to Dillis and Marlene Hendy. That is nice choice there, Phil. Marlene Hendy and Dillis Sowry together on that one. Aren Ben Luan, is that right?
Aren Ben Vlion, yeah.
And as I say, and must say that I've been over recent years been involved in quite a few different Manx concerts and things like that, and well, for many years they've been so eager to participate and to sing Manx songs, English songs, and
yes.
Like you said at the start of it, their voices just blend together beautifully, don't they? And Peter Cubley playing on that one, the old flute.
Yes.
We're hearing from him later.
Yeah, I hope so. Yes,
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
And Charles Gard on the harp.
Yes, indeed.
Not the lager. There we go. So that's from the album The Best That's In as well. You got interested in Manx before you got interested in teaching? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was still at school, really.
Yeah.
Late teens.
And what about when you were learning Manx at school? Did anyone sort of go?
No Manx at school.
No, but I mean,
no.
When you were getting involved and meeting up with these people, I mean, how did the other people who weren't interested in learning any Manx?
I didn't publicise it. I don't think anybody else was interested and didn't know, basically.
Right. You just remember hearing stories about when people used to, years and years ago, be talking in a little corner talking Manx, and they'd be all frowned upon.
Right. Yes. Well,
the sort of English invasion, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that came a bit later in my 20s. I think would be that attitude rather than that's when I was at school. Yeah. Right. It was quite an anti-Manx language in the 1970s, early 70s. Yeah.
Right. But teaching, how did you get into teaching? You always wanted to do it? Or?
I fell
in the family?
All my two brothers and my sister were teachers.
Right,
so
okay.
I thought that's what I might do.
Different subjects? Or?
Yeah, I think we're very different subjects, yeah.
So what was your main areas?
History and geography were my main interest, geography in particular.
Yeah.
That's how I became interested in things like Manx place names.
Right, yeah. I suppose it all fits into place there. And for many years teaching, but obviously you couldn't get your teaching degree over here.
No, you had to go, at that time you had to go away for 3 or 4 years of some people.
Where did you spend your time?
I was in Sunderland. I wanted to be in the north of England. The south I didn't think would suit me.
Okay, so it's still that north-south divide then.
I think there is.
Yeah. But when you were over there, I mean, was that the end of your sort of bits of pieces with Manx at the time?
No, I was still reading bits and pieces, but obviously there was no chance to use it. So it's when I came back in the holidays, I would take it up again. Yeah.
And where did you end up teaching then?
I began teaching at Albert Road in Ramsey.
Really?
Yeah, and I was there for 20 years.
Yeah. I can see the kids now go, I remember
yes,
now.
I know. They'll be horrified.
I don't know.
And after that, after 20 years there, I joined Brian Stoll he set up the Manx language unit in 1992.
Right.
So I joined him with Peggy Carswell. So there was 3 of us teaching Manx then full time.
Yeah. But there has been a lot of really dedicated people over recent times promoting Manx, hasn't it?
Yes. Well, it's a long list of people who, and the list of people who kept Manx alive during its very low time, basically. So we owe them a lot.
Okay, it is 11 minutes before 11 o'clock. Phil Kelly and Simon Clarke here on Moghrey, Jedoonee through till 12 o'clock today. At 12 o'clock, well, just after the 12 midday news, it's going to be Present Politics. John Moss takes a look back at some of the items to have featured on the political agenda this month with the help of studio guests Aaron Michael MHK, Tim Baker, Onken MHK, Rob Callister, and Andy Cowie of Ramsey Commissioners. They're all going to be guests with John Moss on Present Politics today, just after the 12 midday news. And then the Man in Line will be presented from 1:15 through until 2 o'clock today. But Phil, back on the subject of the dictionary, what's this South African connection?
Well, for the dictionary, I use a dictionary production program, basically, which I've used since 2002, and they've been very helpful. In fact, so helpful that they've, on their own site, have produced a dictionary you can interrogate, and they built it for me and for everybody else, of course, totally free of charge. Because they recognised that Manx was an endangered minority language.
Wow. Did the South Africans have any of this sort of, I don't know, experience of languages not being allowed to be spoken?
I
don't know. Diplomatically.
It's the, I think, the variety of African languages. So they write dictionaries that cater for, I don't know how many African languages there are. Must be hundreds. Hundreds, yeah. So that's their speciality.
Right, and there's different types of dictionary, isn't there?
Yes, well, it depends if you're on PC or Mac or Android or iPad. So I've built a number of different formats, so most people can download a dictionary of some description.
Ah. What's one of your favourite words that you discovered?
Oh, well, now you've got me. I don't. A favourite word?
Well, just one of them, or interesting words for different things.
Oh, there's just too many. You've caught me on the hop with that one. I'll think about it and come back.
I just always remember that one of my favourites, I think, is the one for motorbike, the Rawbrie. Yeah, which translates as bike of energy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, I think one along the similar lines is the one for a car. Well, it's a bit of a joke one, I suppose. Mullen and Jowl, the Devil's Mill for a motor car. Yeah. Is
that what they sort of probably people would have named them when they first come out? Maybe?
I doubt it. No, I think they would probably call it car. Car, of course, is a Gaelic word.
Right. But there's a lot of connection all over the place, and you mentioned about teaching in Sunderland and all. And there seems to be a good connection amongst the Celtic areas, doesn't there? Of languages.
Oh, there is now. Languages. Yeah, there's fantastic connections. You just have to look on the learnmanx.com site. It's got connections to Scots Gaelic, Irish, the whole gamut of the Celtic languages. Yeah.
Well, we've got plenty to talk about. We've got another hour to go yet,
right,
so we'll be delving deeper into your personal life as well, Phil, in that next hour as well. Largely dry, with brightness and sunny spells developing. The light to moderate easterly winds will turn north or northwest this afternoon, with temperatures up to 12. Little change overnight, but cold. Minimum temperatures between 2 and 4 Celsius, leading to a slight grass frost in some places. The outlook remaining dry tomorrow, with bright or sunny spells and a top temperature of 11, with a moderate to fresh northerly wind. And Tuesday, dry at first, but turning wet during the afternoon, with freshening southwesterly winds and highs of 10.
Bí a tírim sanna cút smú leis geala de Shell and Grianach, bí na géach an nya jindédas an tui, an nya hui san asta seo. As temprela smú 10 Celsius. As a riat, tanny a tírim merach leis Shell and Geal na Grianach, as temprela smú 9 Celsius. Leis gia mahui mian dus bio. Mor jamert bí a tírim, och hig flias an asta, leis giach an shiras gas na stroja, as an tempralis 10 Celsius. Somewhere
He's embarked on a solo career now, the lead singer with Keane, Tom Chaplin. But they're together with the band on that one, Somewhere Only We Know, taking us in to the second hour of Jedoonee here on Manx Radio, live from the studios on Douglas Head here in the wonderful Isle of Man. Phil Kelly is our guest, the current recipient of the Rai Blaina Vananen Award for services to Manx culture. And how did you find out about that award? I mean, was it a complete surprise?
Yes, it was just I received a letter.
That was it.
That was it. Yeah.
Well, how did you feel?
I was very pleased, of course, because actually there's a monetary value to the award for the recipient themselves, and they can then nominate a charity to receive an amount of money.
Well, you, I think, sent the money off to Munja Vega.
That's right. Yeah, that's
the little people.
That's yes.
Right?
Munja Vega means little people, but they do run play schools, but they also, the main thing is the Manx medium school at St John's.
Yeah. Which, I talk about this on Jedoonee when I was a kid. The only Manx we ever heard was Doug Farragut and Louise Quirk doing the Manx Radio Close Down.
Oh, fantastic! It's brilliant.
That's all we ever had. So when they introduced this into the schools, of primary schools, even the little bit to start with, it just has made so much difference, I think, today, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I actually recorded Doug doing a talk about Manx on Manx Radio, and it was sometime like around midnight, or 11 o'clock to midnight, and 40 years ago. And I happened to have a recording of it, which Manx Radio didn't have. So I passed it on to Adrian Kane, and I think Manx Radio now have a copy of that.
Right, well, we'll dig that out one day. But, I mean, amongst it, when you were such a young age and got interested in the Manx, I suppose there was schools had other languages that they were trying to teach you, French, Latin and things.
Yes.
Are you speaking fluent in them?
Absolutely not. My knowledge of those languages are nil, basically. I was not very good at languages.
So how did you become so good at learning Manx?
I think it's motivation and opportunity. I could see if I lived in the south of England and I was popping across to France on the ferry, there would be some use in knowing some French.
Yeah.
Latin I'm not quite so sure about. Perhaps it's only to help to study English and Romance languages, I think, which weren't of much interest or of use to me either.
So you absolutely, even though that was forced on you, and it was so difficult to learn, something you wanted to learn, like the Manx language, came so much
easy. Yeah.
Was there many people around you? Did you have any friends in a local school sort of area that were in the same boat as you that wanted to learn it?
Well, I mentioned Mike Bowden earlier on, but he was not in his teens when I met him, but he was very interested in Manx too, and we went to quite a lot of things together. And as I said, with the dictionary project, Mike was the one who had the computing skills to save us from putting things manually in order.
But there was Manx, a little bit of written Manx then, was there, in Christmas cards and things?
Oh yes, I'd seen Nolik Ganol as Blaine by Noah. I knew what it meant, but that was the limit of that. Yeah.
And then pictures of the Isle of Man on the cards, were they? Or the robin?
No, probably the robin, I would think, in those days.
Yeah. Good. All right, we got more to come on this week's program. What was you still get satisfaction, Phil, through seeing place names in English and Manx now? And you did mention at the start of the program that you used to see old Manx names. Places there.
Yes, I think now the signage around the Isle of Man is particularly good. It's increased from, when I remember starting Manx there was a few, but now it's well signposted in Manx all around, not just street names, but hoardings for advertising. You can see it everywhere.
And it is strange, the odd person, I must admit, the odd person who's maybe coming when you get the Bannack Lane, the road of the brushwood. But people will say who aren't new to it, will say, yes, you could pass the road to the brushwood, and you get away with you.
Yeah, I think that was a fatal error that they asked for signs to be bilingual. And of course, what do people use? They use the one they're familiar with. They use the road of the brushwoods instead of Glen. And the famous one is the Candrochyd, now Bridge End Road, because it's easier to say.
Well, I must admit, I've lived up north all my life, and I don't hear anybody call them anything other than the Candrochyd Road.
Well, you must mix in the right company, I think.
The Lane Road, the Polly Roads,
That's
all
right,
of them.
yeah.
All of them are still in fruition, and I just think it's part of it. It is strange when you see it on maps for road closures and things, and they'll say the road's closed from the road of the brushwood to the...
That's right. I think the other one I didn't like was the Sulby Claddock, which was then River Meadowland. It had written underneath, and people started saying, River Meadowland instead of Claddock.
I must admit, I think there isn't many. I mean, you'd never call the Begode Road anything other than that, would you?
No.
Road of the Priest's Farm.
Priest Road, that's right. Yeah.
No, good. But that is a thing that really is giving you hope, isn't it? Seeing that an increase in that.
It's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, you only have to drive into places like Tesco's to see Manx on their signage, and a big English firm using it. It's good.
Yeah. Well, it's on a Sunday morning. Morra Jedoonee, it means Sunday morning in Manx. And talking to Phil Kelly on this morning's programme. And what's the inspiration to do with the telephone book?
Well, it was a good source of surnames, place names. It's excellent. It's a good textbook.
Right, that sort of gives you more inspiration. Even when you read through the phone book, was the names and places that you never heard of.
You have to look at the house names. It's an abundance of Manx in it. Not so much these days as when in the 1970s. I think there's been a loss of some surnames,
right?
And I suppose extra road names, and some places have actually changed their names in like the English varieties.
Really? Yeah. Any noticeable ones?
Well, I think probably the one that springs to mind is in Andros, the Candrochyd Road.
All right.
It did at one time become bilingual. It became Bridge End Road. Yeah. But I think now it's been corrected back to Candrochyd Road.
Yeah, well, it is the Candrochyd Road. Yeah. Benahera,
that's right, yeah.
There's another one around there. Good, all right. Got half an hour to squeeze some more in, but let's do the weather update and the duty chemist rota for you for today. It's going to be largely dry with brightness and sunny spells developing. The light to moderate easterly winds will turn north or northeast this afternoon. Temperatures around 12, little change overnight. Minimum temperature pretty cold, 2 or 4 Celsius at best, leading to a slight grass frost in some places. Let's hear that translated in Manx now with Phil Kelly.
Bí a chirim son a cwd smw, les giala de shell and grianach, bí na geirc yn nya, chindedos a tui na nya hui, son asta shore, as a temprela smw 10 Celsius. As a riet, tani a chirim merach les shell and gial na grianach, as temprela smw 9 Celsius, les gia ma hui, mian dysbio. Mor jamert bí a chirim o cig flias an asta. Les geirc yn shiras ges na stroja, as in temprelus 10 Celsius.
Thank you. 11:33. We got our second of our Manx tracks coming up very shortly indeed. But Phil, I've seen you out and about practicing, I would say, your Manx in some of the hospitality suites around the island, and obviously the learning all the Manx that you did. There was lots of people who did so much work, not necessarily in the language side of it, and one sadly missed was a very, very close friend, a neighbour of yours, Roy Kenyick, isn't it?
Yes, I'd known Roy for, over 30 years, I suppose. And Roy was, a true Manxman. He had a passion for everything Manx, politics, heritage, environment, and And he also had enthusiasm for the language. He dabbled in the language and would always try his Manx out on me.
Yes. But yeah, he's just one of them fellas. He got us involved, obviously, when a lot of the people who'd done the Michael plays, I don't know, for 40 years, like we mentioned before, Win and Tony,
That's
and
right.
Roy himself in them, wasn't it? And when they sort of didn't put the bowler hat to rest, because there's still a few of them round about, and the top hats. But when he got us involved in that, and we said, well, not really done much more serious acting. People are laughing at this, I can see them. But when you sort of trusted with old Manx dialects plays and things, which I hadn't done much of in the past, on bits of Young Farmers concerts and things. But Roy had this faith. No, you got the Manx accent, you'll be all right.
That's right.
That encouragement side of it.
Yeah, Roy was a great organiser of people and events. Although many of them might be last minute, they always worked perfectly.
Yes, all stored in the noggin, weren't they, Brian? But yeah, sadly missed sort of man. But it's nice that people, I think, want to continue the work that's been put in by a lot of Manx people who are not so much famous, but famous in their own little world for promoting it, isn't it, and keeping things going.
Yeah, Roy was a very keen photographer. I think he must have a huge store of photographs of Michael. I mean, he could open his own museum, I would think. It's fantastic. If there was an event on, Roy would be there with his camera. It didn't matter what it was. It might have been a ploughing match or a billiard match or a fair of some description. In fact, he had a fair on his own fields a couple of times. Rencullen Fair was reinvented, let's say.
None of the neighbours complained?
No, they all took part.
Yeah, absolutely great. But it's just a passion that's in some people, and and Kirkmichael, the parish or village of Kirkmichael, seems to thrive on it. You still have the Eel Very concerts and bits and pieces, and them exhibitions. That you talk about, Roy, with his photographs and the exhibitions he's had in the little halls there with, the old pictures of Kirkmichael.
That's right. It was. In fact, Roy and myself started the photographic project in Michael, I think 25 years ago, and he was about to put on the 25th anniversary display. So, but that's, well, it may still happen.
Yeah, I'm sure this thing will be carrying on.
Yes, I'm sure they will.
Okay, let's have your second Manx choice today. Peter Cubley, friend of yours too.
Yes, he is a friend of mine, and I've known him since he was quite a young man, and he's a tremendous musician and composer of things. And this track is, although it's not about the Isle of Man, it's about a place in Perthshire. It's got obviously a Gaelic, Celtic flavour. He must have been there at some time and was inspired to write about it musically.
And this is Cynul.
Cynul, yes.
Cynul. Peter Cubley and that track called Cynul. It's a nice piece, isn't it? Relaxing, chilling tune.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah.
Right, Manx Bible Project. We had Charlie on the phone asking about the Bible, but there's been one or two translations from Manx English, are there?
Well, he said his edition was 1819. There have been earlier editions than that. I've got an edition from the 1770s.
Right.
But it has again been reprinted. The 1819 has been reprinted by Sheerwater Press some years ago. You can still get copies in the shops of that. But the Bible Project itself is, again, it's online, so it's free to anybody to. You can interrogate the Bible if you want to look for a particular word or phrase. It pops up, press of a button again.
Yeah.
Or if you just want to sit and read the Bible, you can do that because it's bilingual.
Right. Okay. So there you go. That's some interest in that side of it as well. But what's next for you?
Well, it's the Manx Bible Project I did with Finland Crane, and we have hatched a plot which we haven't started yet, but we've played about with a bit. Would be the equivalent of Google Translate for Manx.
Right.
So Google Translate, you can stick any language in and
Click the button.
Yeah, and turn it into French or Latin if you wanted, but not into Manx, because Google obviously are not interested in anything as small as the Manx language. But we think we can do something equivalent ourselves.
You have to start a Manx search engine, Giggle or
Well, that's good, yeah.
Googly.
I'll copyright that.
Ghoulies, anything at all, couldn't we?
Yeah.
And then have it all for ourselves. But yeah, the dictionary is still ongoing with that, aren't you?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a never-ending project, really. I think, as I said, once you say that's it, then the next day another word will pop out from some article or other that needs putting in. So,
But are the modern words that even ones that get added to the English dictionary, are they hard to put into a Manx? Or
well, I don't. That's not my pigeon, if you like. All I do is make a record of what's being used.
Right.
I've not invented one word.
Right. Okay.
So everything I put in has been used somewhere that I've seen, and then it goes in.
All right, but it's still after all these 30 years, Phil. It's still interesting to you.
Yes, it is. Yes, it's well, it's more than a hobby. It's a bit of a lifestyle thing, I think.
Yeah. And what about Manx events? Do you get to a lot of them?
Well, strangely enough, I went to one yesterday, which was I don't know whether you know Stuart Bennett.
I do know Stuart.
Yeah, Stewie's a good man, good and a good speaker. He had a slideshow yesterday in the House of Manannan on rooftops of Peel, but it was in Manx. It's very interesting too. So I go to events if I can.
Rooftops of Peel.
Yes,
Explain a
really.
bit
I think
more
he
of
should
that.
have called it Views from the Rooftops of Peel. But some of the rooftops were interesting themselves.
Good.
Chimney stacks you wouldn't believe could still be standing.
All the birds still nesting in them as well. Great stuff. All right, we have one more chat with Phil before the end of the programme. Before 12. And our guest on Jedoonee this morning has been Phil Kelly, and I think the award, the Rybleena Vannanan Award for service to Manx culture, I think it's something that people will look back on because it's relatively new, isn't it?
Not that new, I don't think. No, I would think it's probably going 15 years at least, I would think.
Oh, I mean in not 30 or 40
Oh,
years.
it's not 30 or 40, no.
No,
I don't think so.
But when you look at that trophy, there's some nice names.
There's some famous names on that, yes. It's a huge trophy too. It's you could
special
barely
stand
lift it.
for it as well.
Yes, a stand is Poolvash marble.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's a bronze statue itself. You wouldn't take it home as a doorstop.
No, and I think it's something that you'd like to hope in a few years, 10, 15, another 15, 20 years' time, that award will be such an honour as well as it is today. But there'll be so many more people's names on it that have been synonymous with keeping the culture, language of the Isle of Man going.
That's right, yes. Of course, it's not just that, although lots of people have been on it before the language, there's a huge range, a whole spectrum of Manx culture people have supported.
Yeah, and, well, you've got a year before it's got to be handed back.
Yeah, well, I didn't take it away. They give you a nice silver medal, which is very portable.
That makes the difference then. And you work, you're going to continue, as you said, with the dictionary and also the Bible side of things.
Yeah, the Bible project, it wasn't because of its religious content, it's because the Bible is the biggest body of classical Manx. So it's an example of all the grammar, if you're into grammar, or it wasn't for religious purposes.
Right. All right. Well, it's been fascinating having you on the programme. And once again, congratulations on winning that award. That work, quietly, I think you've been getting on with in your 30 years of pursuing it. It's come to fruition with that recognition of that award. So well done with that one.
Good on my moor.
No problem at all. It's been fascinating having you on the programme, and thanks for coming in, Phil.
Good on my head.
There we go. Phil Kelly has been our guest on Moghrey Jedoonee this morning.